Welcome to the Event Engine Podcast. My name is Lee, and today we're back for a second time.
Yes, this is
one and
Lisa
only Liz.
Schulteis.
How are you doing?
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Folks, I mentioned that there is a previous episode where we discussed the Zoom, in fact,
Yes.
wasn't it? And a study that had been released, and that is a timeless classic episode. So in the show notes will be a link to that episode from 2023. You are now back to have a little catch up with us. So I guess first, for the folks that don't know you, could you do a little quick potted history of yourself? And then we're going to discuss what you're talking about tomorrow here at the show.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my name is Lisa Schulteis. I am the founder of two companies, ElectraLime Marketing, which is an event planning management production company, and then Your Event Marketplace, which is a global online directory for the event industry. In my spare time, I'm also the executive director of the Northwest Event Show in Seattle, and then I speak internationally. So I have 4 jobs. We're good.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So, presumably always feeling energized by it all.
You know, I do. I love this industry so
Yeah.
much. It's fun. It's energetic. It is family.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I love it and love traveling all over, love doing the events, love speaking at the events, and just have a lot of fun.
Yeah. Whereas I like to sit at home and knit at the moment. I'm absolutely like going all in on.
I saw your post the other day with the hair. Like, that was hysterical, where you had knitted your hair. It was amazing. So look him up on LinkedIn and look for that post, because it was.
Yeah,
yeah,
I really
it was
wasn't
beautiful.
joking. Sitting
It
at
was
home
beautiful.
knitting is my idea of an international jet-setting life at the moment.
Correct.
So, well, you've facilitated today, which has been phenomenal. I've popped by a few times. You did. I saw you doing a talk, and then you've had people on the stage over in the Event Sustainability Live
Correct.
section of this event. And now I understand you're going to be talking tomorrow. So could you give us a little synopsis on what it is you're going to be talking about?
Yeah, so tomorrow is going to really be, the talk is titled Wired for Engagement, and it really is talking about the neuroscience of events. My background in my previous life before kids was neuropsychology. I used to work with Alzheimer patients and brain injury patients and stroke patients, and both on the research and the clinical side. And so now this has allowed me to really bring that piece that I love and kind of marry it into the events world, because there's so many things with, the way our brain works, and we can make our events more meaningful and more engaging to people if we're thinking about how the brain works and how we can tie those two together.
Could you give us a couple of examples then?
So even from a multi-sensory standpoint, right? So if I am standing on stage and I'm just speaking at you, you're watching me with your eyes, you're hearing me with your ears, and that's about it, right? And I always hate when I have like the 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock session, because you're literally watching the people in the audience fall asleep because they just had some big lunch somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So I'm incorporating 2 of their senses there.
Yeah.
But if I can incorporate 3 or 4 or 5, now I have different touch points of ways that I can interact with them, which not only are going to be more interesting to them, but we all react to things differently, right? I'm a very visual person. So if you show me something, let's say the art on the wall, and let's say you're trying to describe something to me and you show me this picture on the wall behind us, I can understand that really well.
Yeah.
If you talk to my husband, who's a very black and white logistical person, he's the numbers person, right? He has to have everything explained out and detailed out in front of him. And if I say, well, just imagine, like, if we put this amazing blue to drape up on the wall, and he's like, yeah, I can't, he can't. So we all process information differently anyway. And then if we can take and bring in those different senses, then that's allowing us to connect with people in a whole different way. So even anything from, you think about projection mapping, for example, especially during COVID too, some of the immersive experiences, right? So you've got the Van Gogh, immersion, you've got the different, museums that were doing things where you could kind of be in the museum without being in the museum, right? Physically. But it's enveloping that sense of, now it's 3D and it's all wrapped around you, to bringing in taste. That's the one that people don't bring in a lot of times. And I don't know about you, like I socialize much better over food than in any other situation.
I think we're all wired for it, surely.
I travel to eat, if you guys haven't noticed. So, but if we can bring in food to an experience, it makes it that much more into that experience, right? It's one of the reasons that we love to sit down at a table across from people and have conversations while we're shoving food in our face. But it's a little bit more of a different bonding experience than me just talking to you.
Okay.
So part of the talk tomorrow will be talking about multisensory. Some of it will be talking about, even from an inclusivity standpoint, how do we do things differently so that somebody who, maybe somebody who's neurodivergent, right? They're going to experience an event differently than you're going to or than I'm going to. Even us introverts in the world, we experience events very differently than somebody who, is an extrovert. So we want to be able to look at all of those different things and the way our brain works and, dopamine and all of those things to be able to really start looking at, can we design our events differently to give them a different experience?
So weirdly enough, Tim and I were having a conversation which sounds scarily similar to what you're just saying here 2 minutes before you came up to us.
That's funny.
So 10 years ago, this environment here would have energized me. I would have been buzzing. I'd have stayed late for the drinks. I'd have stayed and gone on to the after parties and stuff like that. That was me 10 years ago. And I said whereas right now I'm exhausted from this day one. I've been interviewing people. It's been lovely to meet people. I've met a lot of people and that, but I feel utterly exhausted, and I'm actually ready to go and jump on a train and go home and go and knit. Do you know what I mean? So I said to him, I don't understand what's changed, but I feel like I've gone from being that extroverted, energetic person to now being the total opposite, where I'm here and I'm engaging and I'm enjoying, but also there's a big part of me that just now wants to be back home. I'm tired. I feel much more introverted than I ever used to be. I don't know whether maybe that was COVID or whatever. And he mentioned, I don't know whether you think he's onto something, but he said perhaps it's where you get your energy from now, whereas he feels he gets energy from the interactions he's having here. So he's keeping energized all day, whereas I kind of feel like I'm giving of myself somehow throughout the day. So by the end of the day, I'm just exhausted. Could you speak into any of that? Because I'm still trying to work this out. And that's not to be a negative against ETL. This is a great event and I'm having a great time, but I'm also exhausted.
It's by person too, right? Like, people never believe me. I'm a huge introvert. No one ever believes me because I can fake it all day long, right?
Same.
No question about it. But it takes so much energy for me to, speaking doesn't really bother me because speaking for me is teaching. So I have a different perspective of it, and I love speaking because I get to interact with people and teach them something new.
Resonate there.
But for an introvert, walking this floor is exhausting because you're just putting all of that energy into those conversations, right? And so that's part of it too, of, like all the events that happen at night at all of these different, shows and events. I get to about 5 o'clock and I'm like, okay, I have to go. I have to get right, because I need to get everything that I can out of the event, and I need to build those relationships and build those partnerships. But my hotel room and I, like, by the end of the day, I'm like, don't look at me, don't talk to me, I'm going to my room. People are like, oh, come down to the lobby. I'm like, yeah, no, I'm done. But I think, we all have different personalities. I know other people, I have friends here that they're like the Energizer Bunny, right? They thrive on this. And so for them, they have a different experience, and it seems like they can go forever and ever and ever and ever, and I just want 10% of that energy. But it's the way we're wired, right? We have different personalities, we have different experiences, and some of that goes back to, somebody may have attended an event that maybe they just didn't have a great experience at. So now they have that preconception, and they're kind of living off of that as well. So, there's a lot of different things. And you've got noise levels, and you have bright lights, and all of these different things that those all affect your energy. It all affects the way that the brain is perceiving things. And so there's different things in different spaces that we can, work on within our events to even give people a break, right? And, maybe have a quiet place that they can go, and maybe there you have dim music and you have dim lighting and very soft music, and it just has a different feel and a vibe in it, but it's just a place to go and recharge for 5 minutes, right? Sometimes I'll leave the floor and I just go out into the hallway, or I go somewhere else, again, just to recharge. And then I come back and it's like, great, let's go, right? But you do have to consider all of those different areas to see, how can we work with people to give them that different experience?
Yeah. And so does this kind of go beyond just as well, we've talked here about, say, the physical location, but does this also go further with regards to your overall communication strategy, kind of leading up to an event and post?
Yeah, absolutely. So whatever it is that you're going to include that's different, right? Whether it's a quiet room, whether it is, maybe a different sensory experience, whatever, you definitely want to communicate that ahead of time so that people know that they can expect it, right? Even down to, just the simple needs of life, right? Let's say that you allow, moms to bring their small babies to an event. And if you're going to have a place for them to nurse their babies, let people know that there's a place to nurse your babies, right? So anything that you're doing that's different, or anything that you want to really communicate to people, you definitely want to do that pre-event and let them know.
No, that's so true. And going back into your own experience, how you have obviously you said you've got your previous experience. How have you seen? What have you seen from event organizers, which has made you wince? I guess is the right phrase.
Oh my gosh!
So no names mentioned.
Things that make me wince. That could.
But I think we can learn from other people's mistakes.
That could be a really long list. I think noise level is a huge one for me. Probably one of my biggest pet peeves is when you go to a quote unquote networking event and I'm sitting probably closer to you than this and I still can't hear you.
Okay, yeah.
Because the noise level, they've got the DJ going, or they have something going on that the noise level is just so high.
Yeah.
That's probably one of my biggest pet peeves is, pick your environment based on what the purpose is of that particular session or that particular event, right? If it's a networking event, you want some music, you want to keep the energy in the room, but if your intention is for people to actually have conversations and build relationships, the energy needs to be there, but it needs to not overtake everything.
It's not
right?
a Club 18 to 30 party. This is a...
Correct.
Yeah.
I will admit all the time, I'm like, I'm too old for those, 1 a.m. to 3 a.m. parties in the nightclubs, and I'm like, y'all go have fun. I'm going to bed. Noise level is probably one of my biggest pet peeves.
Yeah.
And then you do have to be careful if you're doing any kind of lighting that is flashing.
Sure.
And that's something that you need to forewarn people about, right? You see that in stadiums all the time, in sports venues. They'll forewarn you and they say, hey, this has flashing lights coming up, or for those who are sensitive. But flashing lights can really be
very triggering,
very distracting, and then also can really trigger people that, and for me, like if there's a strobe light in the room, it actually makes me dizzy. I have to leave.
Yeah.
So you just have to be aware that different people have different needs and different experiences.
Yeah.
But my number one is noise level.
So we've been actually quite lucky here at ATL. The noise levels are pretty good.
Yes.
Obviously we can hear each other because we're in microphones and headsets, but even before we did this,
right.
we could hear each other and have a decent conversation. The stands are well spaced. We're not all crammed together. Yeah. There is a stand over there where now and again I hear a little bit of music, but it's not too loud and it's not over. I don't know what it's like right next to it.
Yeah, and they've done a really good job here because you can still feel the energy of the floor.
Yes.
And that's what we all love, right?
Yeah.
We want to feel the energy of the floor. You may be able to hear a little bit in the feedback on the mics, but it's great walking around because you can feel that there's a lot of people here. You can feel that there's great energy.
Yeah.
but it's not overwhelming.
Absolutely.
And you're right. I can have a conversation with anybody I want, and not feel like I need to shout at them. I don't feel like I need to, fight for the attention.
Yeah.
And I love the energy on this floor. And
with regards to things like escape, I mean, you, obviously, if you're watching on YouTube, you can only just see this little corner, but right out there, we're at the Excel, so there is this huge hallway.
Yes.
Where I can, and I've done it at least 3 times already, where I've gone down to the furthest coffee shop I could find away from here and just went and sat in there for a bit. So there's plenty of space to just go out and escape and then just come back in again.
Right.
And making the in and out traffic very easy. I think it's actually something that I enjoyed about the event last year as well. They used to have a venue at. Do you remember when it was at the Truman Hall? I think it was, or
no,
brewery?
I've only been here.
Oh, okay. So it was the brewery, and it was a very old building, nice place. Had a big auditorium, but then lots of smaller ones. And we were in one of the kind of smaller halls, and I just remember feeling very kind of secluded away from the energy of the event, tucked away, which was fine. We still met with people, etc. But also I kind of felt a bit trapped there as well. Whereas this vibe here is really nice because it's one big open space.
Right.
And even though it's 2 events, it also feels like the same event, doesn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. They do a good job of co-hosting both of the events, and it's just it's a good use of space here.
So kudos, Mr. Parry.
Yes.
Well done.
Yeah, very well done.
Another cracking event and team. Obviously, I know it's not just Adam.
Yeah, he's got a great team. So
he has, hasn't he?
Absolutely.
No worries. So what are you hoping people? What's the biggest takeaway you're hoping people will walk away with tomorrow, and then we'll still say goodbye?
I think tomorrow is just a matter of, take a look at your event and take a look at it a little bit differently. And if you can implement one thing, or just be aware of one thing, right? You may not have to do something new, but maybe now you're more aware of something that you can say, okay, we need to maybe evaluate this and see if we need to change it or if we're doing it well, right? So really just focusing on that and kind of taking a new look at how you're producing your event. And see, where there's some room for change and room for increasing engagement and connecting with people.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me again.
What is the best way for people to connect with you?
That would probably be on LinkedIn. Right. So we'll put that link.
We will. We're BFFs on LinkedIn. So, folks, there will be a link in the show notes to connect with Lisa.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
All right. Put it there.
Always.
Awesome.